Hey guys, it's Bob Morreale here with the Tuning School, and on this, our last Tech Tuesday of 2020, and with Halloween just a few days away, we decided to give everybody a little scare by telling our tuning horror stories. So let's get it started. All right, so I'm here now with Brett Lundqvist. Brett works right with me in the R&D team, and Brett, I know you have some scary horror dyno stories, so lay it on, man.
Yeah, I might have one or two to share. So a long time ago, when I was kind of getting started in this industry, I was working for a shop, of course, and you know, I was kind of more or less like the guy who would just set things up. So, you know, I'd strap the car down, I'd put the sensors in it. Right. We had a mobile dyno. Okay. So it's kind of off the floor, you know, get under there, do everything. So this day we had a twin turbo Lightning. It was actually a really, really sweet build. And we had a twin turbo Lightning up there, and everything's strapped down, everything's going well. And again, I'm not the tuner, so I'm standing probably 20, 30 feet off. I'm kind of, you know, watching things, making sure things are, you know, going okay. And the calibrator's in the car. We're like 4 or 5 dyno pulls in, and everything's been going really well. And he goes to make a pull, and he gets into this thing, and about, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, the drive shaft just comes right out the bottom.
Oh, that's the worst.
It hits the concrete, it flies across the shop, about a foot or two away from my feet. Like I almost feel the wind as it flies. And I mean, completely scared, scared me terribly. You know, I thought my legs were just gonna break off, but you had no time to react. It was just boom, boom across the shop. Obviously, dyno session's done. I had to change my pants, and you know, we moved on from there. So that was one of my stories. And then another time, same company. You know, I didn't run the dyno very often back then, so I don't know, I was, you know, getting more acclimated to doing some tuning and kind of learning my ways. And so we were having a dyno event. And usually, again, I would just strap cars down, and then, you know, Have
you noticed that's where all the bad horror stories come from?
You know,
dyno days?
Yeah, that's where the bad things are.
It happens.
Yeah, well, here's another one. Now, this one's more embarrassing than it is scary, okay. But it, you know, it could be both ways. So, you know, I never really ran the cars. I'd maybe done 1 or 2. And most of the time they were already prepped and on there, and maybe I was just making an extra pull for some reason, kind of training. So this day, the guy who normally ran the dyno, he was locked up in a conversation. We had to get cars going. He's like, put it on there and run it. And I'm like, all right, you know, young, like, all right, I'm gonna do this.
Make it happen.
You know, and so it's a brand new Mustang. This is like 2004, 2005. This is an 05 Mustang, brand new. Things, you know, barely broken in, smells brand new. Get it up there, get it strapped down, you know, roll it, center it, strap this, everything's good. And so I go to, you know, kind of get going on it, let the brake out, and it's just not accelerating. And I'm like,
well, it only makes 150 of the wheels,
right? Whoa. So
sorry,
it's just, you know, it's just not going like
I
think, you know, but, you know, I'm shifting through the gears, and I'm like, something's wrong. So I kind of stop, and I yell over to the guy. I'm like, hey, do you see anything, you know, weird? What's going on out there? He's like, no, it looks fine to me. Just make the pull already. Okay, all right. So, you know, get it in the 3rd or 4th gear and put the pedal to the metal. And this pull has taken a long time. Now, I've been at the dyno for a couple months now, at least seen, you know, usually it's 10 seconds, you're done. I'm like, this is something's not happening right. So I'm, you know, almost 5,000 RPMs, probably over 100 miles an hour, and I start seeing smoke out the back end.
Oh, that's not good.
And I'm like, oh no, so shut her down. And then right about then, the owner and the guy who runs the dyno normally come running over and like, oh, the e-brake, the e-brake.
I'm
like, no. And sure enough, you know, this brand new Mustang, it only needed 1 click. I mean, you couldn't even see the arm was up. It was tight, but it was enough. And so, yeah.
Smoked the e-brake on the dyno.
I tore this guy's brakes up. So had to buy him new brakes and go down and apologize and install them for him.
Wow.
But he ended up being a really cool guy. But yeah, that was pretty scary and embarrassing.
Payroll deduction.
Yeah.
Check.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Wow.
So those are my scary stories.
All right, so I'm here with Josh Hofstra, who technically is the head of business and development and sales and things of that nature, right? But you also have taught a lot of our GM classes.
That's correct.
And you still sometimes do cover some of our GM classes. So I know you have some crazy horror stories.
Absolutely. I was a professional tuner for 4 years before coming on full-time at the tuning school. I was part-time as a GM instructor before that.
Yep.
But over the years, I have encountered very many horror stories.
What's the worst? I want the worst.
The worst one in particular, I lost many nights of sleep over. So there was a particular Camaro that had come from another shop, shows up to my shop, hey, it's having a bunch of issues, we think it's a tune issue. I say, okay, I'll take a look at it. So spent about 6 hours on the dyno, and we ran through 2 narrowband O2 sensors. We ran through a computer.
Okay.
We ran through basically every electrical sensor you could think of.
Okay.
The customer refused to believe that it was a mechanical issue.
Okay.
Fast forward 30
Pretty
days,
common.
I have nightmares about tuning this
Okay.
5th gen Camaro. What ends up happening, and I think it's funny, nightmares,
Nightmare.
Halloween special.
Yeah, I got it.
What we end up doing is sending it to the local dealership, and it turns out that somebody had installed the harness underneath the supercharger,
Okay.
and it had made contact with the cylinder head, which had caused it to basically have its own ghost.
Wow, I was making grounds.
That, yeah, over the course of 30 days, we probably replaced 3 or 4 ECUs,
Wow.
narrow bands,
that's
mass
bad.
airflow sensors.
Yeah.
So I would say that is the most horror
Yeah.
story I've had.
Wow, that sounds like probably the worst thing to try and troubleshoot ever.
Absolutely. I mean, you can only do so much
Right.
Before you have to track down the entire harness
And figure out someone put it under the blower and sandwiched it.
at the back
At the
of
back.
the engine that you
Yep.
can't see. Yeah,
That's bad.
for sure.
So I've got Tony Gagnon here. Hey, Tony, how you doing?
Good, it's good.
Awesome. So I know Tony really well, and I know Tony has got to have some scary dyno stories. So Tony, hit us up.
Well, how are we going? It's probably not really famous, more infamous, but it's a blue GT500 from many years ago. Good friend of mine, he shall remain nameless at the time. However, it was I had set a precedent with a friend of his car that actually made 825. And as we know, the early GT500s, the rod bolts would break around 780 to 800 horsepower, but I had done it on his friend's car. So with that being said, my friend brought his car and wanted to dyno it and said, I want 800. I really want 800. He had been on the magazine cover, everything. He wanted 800 so bad. And I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. Now, the first car, his friend's car, was really a baby car. This one, on the other hand, was not a baby car. This car had been beat to death. So with that being said, I warned him. I said, I don't think this is a good idea. He insisted on doing it. I said, okay. So next thing you know, we strapped the car down, get it all ready. And my initial plan was to make a pull to roughly about 6,000 and let off and then check everything and go from there. I figured it'd be real close to 800 at that point. So I loaded up. Here we go. 6,000 RPM. I'd be in the clutch and boom, explosion. We have fire. We have everything. And of course, it made the world's top 10 dyno failures. Yes. So that's where it came from. And that was me in the blue GT500. So I would say it's more infamous than anything. So
That is awesome. That is awesome.
we followed
man.
up though with over 1,000 horsepower, which was ahead of its time with that car at the time, and car running 860s. So after that engine was broke, so maybe my mom always said things happen for a reason. I think it did.
I think you found the answer on that one, man.
Yes,
Although
sir.
that was scary. I've seen the dyno video. Thanks for sharing, Tony.
No problem.
All right, guys, so I'm sitting here with Brett McCullen, our head of instructors, and Brett, I know for sure you have some crazy stuff that has happened. What is the worst thing you can think of, Brett?
I don't know if I would say I have a bunch of crazy stuff, but I have a few. If I had to pick one off the top of my head right now, I was trying to help friends of ours with a 2011 Cadillac CTS-V, and this had a I believe I remember right, it was a Texas Speed 427.
Oh, I know this story.
And it had
Yeah.
it had a ProCharger F2 blower. I did not even know they made an F2 blower, cog drive, all this crazy stuff. And the car, they were trying to shoot for like stock ECU, full weight records, which seemed kind of absurd at the time, but I was like, okay. And trying to help them tune this car, and I think I made like 800 horsepower in accident one time. Like it was like dead lean at like 18 AFR.
Gosh.
And still made 800 horsepower.
It sneezed and made 800
Yeah,
to the
it was
wheels.
so super powerful car.
Yeah, right.
And I'm doing pulls on it one night, trying to get wide open throttle dialed in, which was a super lengthy process over the course of a couple weeks.
Right.
And I actually have a video of it at the very top end of the pull. It lifts the head and it physically blows apart the cylinder head and the block. A fireball shoots out of the side of the car.
That's the best.
And it's just my face in the video is just, you see me like looking like at the screen dash, and then I look up and I see the fireball. I'm just like, and I'm just like trying to put it in neutral
That's
as fast as
awesome.
I can. And yeah, it didn't
awesome.
stay on fire.
Right.
It was just a very violent explosion, and they just welded the block back up and then
Just
slapped
went
a new
back
head
again
on
to
it.
it, right?
Yeah, they literally welded the block back up, sanded it down, put a head gasket on it.
Shipped
and then
it.
then they went again. I was like, okay. So in the car, I think that even today, the car's really fast. They eventually got off the stock ECU, but yeah, that was definitely kind of a horror story moment of like, there was a fireball that just came out.
I'm not a fan of fireballs. That's
No,
just
it's
not
not.
what I'm tuning, what I want you to be focused
So
on.
speaking of fireballs,
You don't know me. Okay, he knows me.
what horror story do you have?
I only have 2 horror stories that have ever happened.
Okay.
Only 2. In fact, no, okay, I'll pick one of the 2.
All right.
And it does involve fire. It involves fire. I don't like fire and dyno tuning at the same time. They're not supposed to go together. But in this case, I happen to be dyno tuning down at the dyno level. At the time, our dyno was a 50-inch roller. And so it's the car,
58 inch or
50 something,
yeah,
right? So the
big.
vehicle's set up high. And the guy driving, we happen to be friends with, and we happen to work with him quite a bit. He's a vendor in the industry, so he knows what he's doing. He drives on the dyno quite a bit. But normally when I'm tuning, I'm in the vehicle. But in this case, I happen to be sitting down at the desk. Abnormal for me, right? I'm normally in the vehicle riding a shotgun. However, it's on the dyno, I'm down here, and this vehicle happened to be a LS swapped Colorado. And it was really cool, like really well done. Unfortunately, it always had this weird problem where like sometimes it would just spit a little bit of transmission fluid out the spout at the top, you know, the overflow, just a little bit. And we're like, man, it's not even over full. Why does this do it? We could never figure out why it would do it, but it was random. It was just like a little teaspoon here and there. But he's in the middle of the pull. I'm down here watching the scanner, literally, 10 seconds of full throttle, and something just in the background caught my eye. Just a little ember of something, and it was like a, one of those moments, like when the AC drops on the header, like a little bit of water. Instead, it wasn't water, it was transmission fluid. I didn't know it at the time, and that was a little orange glow that caught my eye over the top of the laptop. And then I just looked up for a second, and I was like, huh. And then all of a sudden, boom, and then whoosh, and fire. And then the whole transmission just dumps. I don't know how it managed to do it. Out, over, down onto the headers, and I'm yelling, fire, fire, like literally yelling fire. I think you were inside.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have known because the pull kept going. It's not like it gave up or quit. And then he's inside, the guy driving was like, what's going on? I'm like, get
Fire,
out.
obviously.
Like, get out. And it's strapped to the dyno. What are you going to do? So I went and grabbed every fire extinguisher I could find. And we have like 5 of them around the dyno. It wasn't that hard. Just start launching the extinguishers on this thing. We put the fire out. It puked everything. Just completely fireballed this vehicle. But the vehicle didn't burn to the ground or anything. But I do have a cool picture of me holding the fire extinguisher next to the windshield of this vehicle, because what happens after you let off a fire extinguisher,
Yeah.
it's winter wonderland everywhere. It's
Pretty much.
white powder,
Yeah,
dust
everything's
everywhere.
ruined.
It was awesome. I would
Yeah,
do
it
again.
pretty much was like sitting inside and then hearing, you're just sitting inside and you just hear, oh, and you're like, what was that? And then like you kind of like slowly push yourself back from the desk and like open the shop door and you're like, why is it white everywhere in here?
Yeah, that's
And
pretty much
that
what
was
happened.
that's what happened.
That was the most terrifying thing.
It was pretty scary.
It was terrifying because this shouldn't be. Like, what are you going to do when it's bolted down and on fire? You gotta put it out or it's over.
Let it burn.
Oh, wow. I'm offended you didn't say that. So thanks for watching, guys. We're going to be back early next year with more high-performance tuning knowledge. So make sure you follow us on social media or visit our website to sign up for the newsletters. You can also continue to watch our tech tips every other Tuesday. So until then, stay tuned.